All right, we have to look at this interview that Trump did with Time magazine. This is a written interview. Now, what I mean by that is not that Trump wrote his answers. That would be a different kind of abortive attempt to use language to communicate. What I mean is that this was an interview that was published as a transcript, and it is wacky, wacky stuff. Now, it's not a particularly long interview. I encourage you to read it, but we're going to pull out and look at a few specific areas from this interview. First of all, on the topic of trade deals, Trump insisted during the interview that he's made all the deals. And then the following exchange took place. Time said, not a single deal has been announced yet. When are you going to announce them? And Trump says, I've made 200 deals. Time says, you've made 200 deals. Trump says, 100%. And then when asked, can you share with whom? Trump unleashes a word salad, the likes of which we have not seen for a while. Trump says, quote, because the deal is a deal that I chose. View it differently. We are a department store and we set the price. I meet with the companies and then I set a fair price, what I consider to be a fair price, and they can pay it or they don't have to pay it. They don't have to do business with the United States, but I set a tariff on countries. Some have been horrible to us. Some have been okay. Nobody's been great. Nobody's been great. Everybody took advantage of us. What I'm doing is I will, at a certain point in the not too distant future, I will set a fair price of tariffs for different countries. These are countries, some of them have made hundreds of billions of dollars, and some of them have made just a lot of money. Very few of them have made nothing because the United States was being ripped off by almost every country in the world, in the entire world. So I will set a price, and when I set the price, and I will set it fairly, according to the statistics. All right, listen. I don't even have the ability to do the whole thing. I can't stomach it. It's totally vomitous. That is not anything. He's not saying anything there. It is just wacky, deranged stuff. And there's one little detail I do want to see addressed, which is that there don't seem to be 200 countries with whom we would make deals. Depending, if you look at how many countries are there, if you consider disputes and disagreements over independence and, some technicalities, there are roughly 195 countries. And the idea that Trump made 200 deals, of course, then this means he's making more than one deal with certain countries. None of it makes any sense. Now, terrifyingly, during this interview, Trump was asked about the idea of sending American citizens to prison in El Salvador. Time magazine asked, you asked President Bukele to build out the Sikot prison to house American citizens. You said you would love to send homegrown criminals there. Trump says, no, I didn't say that. I said if it were permissible according to the law, I would like to do that, yes. And Trump was then asked, well, do you intend to send American citizens to foreign persons? I think they mean prisons. I would love to do that if it were permissible by law. We're looking into that. When I have a person, these would be extreme cases. When I have a person that is a 28-time in and out person that goes out and tries to kill people every time he or she is out, I would have no problem with doing that whatsoever. We're talking about career criminals that are horrible people that we house and we have to take care of for 50 years while they suffer because they killed people. If you ask me whether or not I would do that, I would, but totally. And I think you have to leave this part of the sentence totally subject to it being allowed under law. And people are looking to see if it would be allowed under law. We have crime rates under Biden that went through the roof, and we have to bring those rates down. And unfortunately, those rates have been added to by the illegal immigrants that he allowed into the country. None of this makes any sense. When you take Trump's speech, the weave, as he calls it, when you take Trump's speech and you transcribe it into text, it's exponentially more unhinged. It's exponentially more unintelligible. And when Trump was then asked, which Americans would you do that to? Which Americans would you send to prison in El Salvador? Trump said, I would do that to people that hit old ladies over the head with a baseball bat, for people that grabbed their bicycle. You saw that one where they dragged an old woman along the street on a motorcycle, a bicycle, a motorcycle, I think. People that push people into subway trains just before the train is ready to stop. You saw that? The man barely lived. Think of it. And a guy comes up to him, and from behind he pushes him. That's a serious, serious thing. People that shoot people in the back, people that are executioners. Yeah, I would have no trouble with that, but subject to it being allowed by law. Now, of course, We've looked at this. It is not allowed by law. You can't exile American citizens to prisons in other countries. But when we say it's not allowed by law, what does that mean? Because if there's no mechanism strong enough to stop Trump from doing it, I guess he can do it. I don't know. That's the terrifying part. Trump was then asked, you recently said you were not joking about seeking a third term and that there were methods to do it. What methods? Trump is cagey. He says, I'd rather not discuss that now. But as you know, there are some loopholes that have been discussed that are well known. But I don't believe in loopholes. I don't believe in using loopholes. Trump was then asked more specifically, you wouldn't run as vice president to J.D. Vance. This is one of those so-called loopholes that's been floated. Trump goes, I don't know anything about what. Look, all I can say is this. I am being inundated with requests. I'm doing a good job. Great physical exam. And unlike every other president, I took the cognitive test and I aced it 100%. And I bet you guys couldn't get 100% on that exam. It's a tough exam. You know, when you get into the mid questions, it gets to be pretty tricky and pretty tough. And the last questions are very tough and I aced it. And I guarantee I'd make a big, beautiful bet that you guys couldn't ace it. But anyway, but look, it's good to have you. It's a very nasty interview. They don't ask any of the good things. Wow. All right. And then wrapping. One final question, Mr. President. You were showing us the new paintings you have behind us. You put all these new portraits. One of them includes John Adams. John Adams said we're a government ruled by laws, not by men. Do you agree with that? Trump confused. He goes, John Adams said that? Where was the painting? Trump's told it's right here. And then Trump says, we're a government ruled by laws, not by men. Well, I think we're a government ruled by law. But, you know, somebody has to administer the law. So therefore, men and women certainly play a role in it. I wouldn't agree with it 100%. We are a government where men are involved in the process of law. And ideally, you're going to have honest men like me. At that point, the interview comes to a close with a thank you, Mr. President. We appreciate your time. Just stunning. Stunning. When you take his incoherence and you see it in black and white, transcribed, the degree to which this guy is in over his head becomes so unavoidable to acknowledge and recognize. And telling the interviewers they couldn't pass the brain injury test, out of this world. And just imagine if former President Biden had ever given an interview like this. It would be immediate demands for resignation. With Trump, it's Tuesday. If you run a business, you know managing multiple systems gets overwhelming. That's why there's Odoo, the all-in-one business management software. It simplifies your entire workflow, puts everything together in one easy-to-use platform. Our sponsor, Odoo, will seamlessly integrate all these different parts of your business: CRM and sales, accounting, inventory, manufacturing. Imagine effortlessly sending quotes, managing leads with predictive scoring, automating purchase orders, tracking real-time inventory, all of it with an intuitive dashboard. Manufacturing becomes streamlined with Odoo's comprehensive production planning, scheduling tools, quality management features. You know, the best part is it's fully customizable. I really find that I want to customize for my business how these dashboards work. You only need to install or use the apps that your business actually needs and tailor the platform to fit your workflow. Simplify your business management today. You can try Odoo completely free for 14 days, no credit card required, plus your first app is free forever. Visit odoo.com/Pacman now. The link is in the description.